The phone. This happened about 10 years ago. I live in a little town right near the Virginia-West Virginia state lines and work for a small factory that makes pulleys. Really, pulleys. I work second shift, 3 p.m. until midnight, Sunday through Thursday. I'm on an assembly line and I drill holes and join the two sides of the pulley with the rivets. It's monotonous, but I guess it pays okay, and the work isn't too hard. I live with my wife Sarah and our 10-month-old daughter Deborah in a small house on my parents' property. Sarah works part-time days at the Dollar General in town. My dad always liked his privacy, so we're at the end of a long dirt road. It's a bitch to get in and out of when it snows and rains heavy. Luckily, we have 4-wheel drive vehicles, so it's a little better. So anyway, I was heading home one night, and as I rounded a bend in our road, I saw a telephone in the middle of the road. It was an old-fashioned one, rotary dial, like my grandparents had. Granddaddy told me one time he got it new in 1931. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have had any idea how old it was. As strange as it was to see a phone in the middle of the road, I noticed it had a long black phone cord running off the back of it into the woods. I stopped my truck and looked at it for a few moments. What the hell? I thought. Where did this thing come from? I put my truck in park and got out of the cab and walked towards it slowly. It was lit up fine by my truck's headlights as I walked towards it. It was puzzling why an old-fashioned phone would be sitting in the exact center of our road, but even more so why a long phone wire led to the woods. I went back to my truck and got out a flashlight and shone it on the cord. I followed it to the wood's edge and shone my light deeper into it. The cord kept going, but I decided not to follow it right then. Instead, I went back to the phone itself, knelt down, and looked at it. I reached out to touch it, and it was cold to the touch. Not the regular outside temperature for a fall day, but cold. Cold. I drew my hand back and pondered it for a few minutes. No flashes of inspiration came to me, so I touched it again. This time, it was a normal temperature, as if it had been sitting outside for a while. Which it had, I guess. Without knowing what else to do, I picked up the receiver and put it to my ear. I got a dial tone, and then I heard a ringing on the other side, as if the phone had connected itself to another phone. It rang 4 times, and someone picked up. I pulled the handset away from my ear a little when I heard a voice say, "Hey, I've been waiting for your call. How was work tonight?" I automatically said, "It was okay, I guess." "Good, good." "Who are you?" I said. You don't know me. Or maybe you do. I'm not sure." And then that laugh again. "Where are you?" "I don't expect you really want to know that, David." I was shocked. He, she, it knew my name. "Why not?" I asked. "People don't like to think about places like this," the voice said. "It just makes them feel uncomfortable and, icky." That laugh again. "What do you want?" I said, worried. "I just want to get acquainted," the voice said. "We'll be talking again, soon." With that, the call clicked off, and the phone went flying. Literally, as if someone had yanked the cord. I jumped back as the handset jerked out of my hand and watched in horror as the phone disappeared. I jumped up, turned my flashlight on, and ran to the edge of the woods. I shone my light, but there was no trace of either the phone or the cord. I just stood there feeling like an idiot until I snapped out of it and walked back to my truck. I got in and drove home. "You're late," Sarah said as I walked in the door. "Yeah," I replied. I wanted to tell her about the phone, but figured she'd think I was making things up. After a while, I began to wonder if it had actually happened, or if I was just so tired I was dreaming. Sarah fixed me something to eat, and then we crawled into bed. I slept fitfully that night, and finally got out of bed around 5:30. I was sitting on the front porch when Sarah came out with 2 cups of coffee and sat beside me. "Are you okay?" she asked. You were tossing and turning all night. Is something wrong? Nah, I said as I shrugged my shoulders. I just couldn't sleep. Okay, do you want some breakfast? I'd love some, I replied, and went into the house to help her. Do you want me to get Deborah up now or let her sleep? Just let her sleep. We could use some alone time, said Sarah. I wasn't much help as I sat at the table and watched her cook. She made bacon, eggs, and home-fried potatoes. We ate in silence. I'll clean the kitchen up, I said. You go get ready for work. She nodded her head and walked down the hall. I washed the dishes and put them in the drainer, and then sat down in the den in front of the TV. There really wasn't much on as I flipped through the channels. She came down the hall, kissed me, and said, I'll see you later. What do you have planned for today? I shrugged my shoulders. Nothing really, just relax some. If you get a chance, could you fix that broken line on the clothesline, please? Deborah finally got up around 9:30. I fed her and got her dressed and took her outside and put her in her bouncy seat while I worked on replacing the clotheslines. I figured if one broke, the others might not be too far behind. It took me about an hour and a half, and while I was putting the supplies and tools away, I heard a phone ring. An old-fashioned phone ring. I stepped out of the shed and looked around. Where was it coming from? It was then that I noticed the same black phone sitting on our back porch. I also noticed that Deborah's bouncy seat was sitting by the porch, empty. I ran across the yard and looked around. She was nowhere in sight. I grabbed the phone. Hello? Hello? Who's there? I yelled. I heard that weird laugh I had heard before, and then the voice says, Tell Daddy goodbye, sweetie. Then I heard a baby cry. Deborah's cry. What have you done, you bastard? Where's my daughter? Give her back to me, now! We'll see, David. We'll see. The laugh, and then the line went dead. This time, the phone just disappeared into thin air, right out of my hand. What the hell was going on? Was this for real, or was I hallucinating? Maybe I had a stroke or some kind of mental breakdown. I didn't know what to do. I pulled my cell phone out and started to dial 911. What was I going to say to the police? That my daughter had disappeared and a mysterious antique phone had appeared and disappeared out of nowhere? I finally dialed 911 and explained that my daughter had disappeared while we were out in the yard. The dispatcher said she'd get someone out here right away. 15 minutes later, I heard a siren and ran to the front yard. The cop car slid to a stop, and Davy Mullins, who I graduated high school with, climbed out. I explained what had happened, minus the phone. I said that no one had come into my yard, and I had no idea what had happened to Deborah. Davy asked if Deborah could have climbed out of the seat and walked away, and I told him that she was just at the point of crawling. He looked at the seat and saw that the seatbelt was still buckled. He then asked if I had seen any animals around, and I said no. Then Davy started asking me if I was feeling okay, or if I was having thoughts about hurting myself, or others. I yelled at him, No, goddammit, I'm fine, and I resent the fact that you think I'd do something to my own daughter. I love her. Davy walked around the house and into the woods after telling me to stay on the front porch. While he was gone, I called Sarah and told her that Deborah was missing. She began screaming at me and asking me what I had done. I tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't have it. She told me she'd be home as soon as she could get there. Davy came around the house as soon as I hung up with Sarah. He told me he'd called in to get some help searching. In the meantime, he said he wanted to look around inside the house. I took him in, and he slowly looked through every room. Of course, he found nothing, so he shrugged and walked back out to the yard after telling me to stay in the house. He took my cell phone and unplugged the house phone and put them in the front seat of his car. I watched him through the windows as he slowly walked around the backyard. He walked around the shed and kicked at some piles of dirt around the edge of the garden. Was he actually looking for a grave? For that matter, did he think I had done something to my own daughter? Christ! Suddenly, I was very tired and sat down in the recliner and closed my eyes. I jumped when the phone rang. Wait, what? Davy had taken our phone out to his car. What the hell was ringing then? I got up and walked into the kitchen, and there, on the kitchen table, was that black phone. I picked up the receiver and said, "Hello?" I heard Sarah's voice, sounding like she was in a big empty room, her voice echoing. "David? David? Hello? David? Where are you? I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on. Please, honey, help me." The phone hung up as I heard that strange but now familiar laugh. I think I must have passed out because the next thing I knew, I woke up in the back of an ambulance speeding down the road. They took me to the emergency room and examined me. A doctor came in and asked me a bunch of questions, and then he told me he was going to admit me for a 72-hour hold. I don't know how long I've been here now. That damn black phone is sitting on the floor next to my wheelchair. It keeps ringing, but I'm not going to answer it. I'm just not.